Well, every Monday, the TTPS joins us on now in the form of Inspector Michelle Lewis. We welcome you again, Inspector. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Ruckus, and good morning to Trinidad and Tobago and all listening on TTT this morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I am well and happy to be here.
Lovely to have you yet again. This Wednesday, the UN observes World Day Against Child Labor, the 12th of June, every single year. Tell me how the TTPS is joining in this commemoration.
So this morning, the TTPS is going to share some awareness and, of course, penalties for persons in relation to child labor. So yes, we join the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service joins the World Against Child Labor. And according to the Act, the Children's Act, child labor really means employing a child under the age of 16 for gain, whether for the child or for someone else. Right?
So even if the gain is for the child,
it's for the child.
It's still wrong.
It is still wrong.
Right.
And so the parent or the guardian or the person with responsibility for that child who causes that child to do that, then that person can be charged for committing an offense and spend 5 years, 3 years imprisonment and $5,000.
Interesting.
But if it is a company, an organization, and they employ someone under the age of 16 knowingly, then it is $25,000.
Okay. I'm sorry, repeat the charge for the parent.
For the parent, it's $5,000.
$5,000.
For the organization, it's
$25,000. Okay. And they both get charged, or is either or?
Both can get charged if the parent knows. Also, the law allows for, if it is that the parent or guardian or the person with responsibility lies and says the child is actually older, and the company believes it and hires the child thinking that the child is actually over 18. The parent will be charged. Sorry, over 16, the parent or the guardian, the person responsible will be charged and not the organization. So the law provides really and truly what child labor talks about is really to allow a child the opportunity of an education. And anything that hinders that in relation to child labor, someone can be charged. Now, according to the Children's Act, up to the age of 15, it is mandatory that a child is in school. So anything over that, it is okay to get employment, even though you are under 16, under 18. So where you are 16, but under 18, then the employer must have a record of you in the organization, indicating, of course, your date of birth, when you started, and all those details.
Right. So what about in the case where, we see during the July-August vacation, people want to get jobs, to get a little hustle, to make sure they can have a little money to buy new shoes on the vacation going on, a little outfit. That's illegal?
The law allows for persons to be employed in a family business. So if your family has a company, and whether you're 12 or 13 and they're helping out, that's legal. That's legitimate.
Even if you're getting paid?
Well, yeah, it's in the family business. So the family, you're in the company.
Right.
You're not really getting paid really, because you're not getting no salary, right? The law doesn't provide.
You
will get a little allowance, but you can't be on a payroll because the law doesn't provide.
Okay, so once you're on the payroll is where the challenge comes?
If it is a company, no. Back up a bit.
Well, I want to make sure to clarify that.
There are businesses and organizations, and even prostitution, there are no payrolls. They get the cash in hand.
Yeah.
So in such cases where the evidence proves that the person did receive money or gain, then it's a charge.
And what company get in charge in that case?
Well, there's where the evidence come into play. So even though we may not have records, but we have statement and evidence, person saying that, yes, I did receive so and so for this purpose. And even in the case of prostitution. So in the case of prostitution, where somebody encourages or causes a child to seduce or to actually engage in prostitution, the offense is for life for the parent, guardian, or those with responsibility for the child.
Inspector, I am having a bit of a challenge this morning because I understand what you're saying with regards to what the law dictates and what the law states, right? But it almost sounds like it's a crime to be poor. Because most times we see people who, for example, with children under 16 going to work, it's oftentimes because it's needed for the family, to help out the family. Whether it is they can't afford to go to school that day because they don't have transport money, they don't have food, they don't have the proper clothing for schools, and all sorts of other various reasons. But you're saying to me that even in those cases, the parents still couldn't get charged $5,000 or years of imprisonment if they can't pay the money.
So the child didn't ask to come into the world.
Of course
we are
not.
thankful and happy that you came into the world and that you are a blessing, right? But you're not a blessing to the family, to the parent, meaning that the parent responsible to take care of you up to the age. And so further, there are areas in the different ministries that allows, if it is that your financial situation is of a lower bracket, that there are allowances and benefits that you can receive, not benefits really, but support
Right.
that the ministry would give you
The
for a
different social
period of
support
time.
programs that we have going on, right.
So that you have no reason to cause your child to take care of you who are an adult.
Right.
Workers.
Not me, my child's safe. I come to work every day, well, most days. But you know what I mean? But what about those parents that we see taking their children onto the streets to ask for charity? Does that count as work? Does that count as child labor? Does that
It
count
does.
as...
So the parent now is utilizing the child for gain.
Yeah.
And so it is. Now, under the Labour Act, Industrial Relations Act 8801, right? It really directs the Labour Inspectorate to charge and to put matters before the court. So reports can come, but the police are not really responsible for charging or investigating matters in relation to child labour. It is really the Inspectorate under the Ministry of Labour that puts matters before the court for prosecution.
For prostitution or for child labor?
Prosecution.
Prosecution. Okay.
Correct.
So, so in this regard, the police driving on the road and see an adult with a child begging for money at the side of the road, cool. They can't charge them.
No,
or they don't
no.
charge them.
We can't. A report can be made to the Inspectorate of the Ministry of Labour. So the law is clear in the Children's Act 4601 and in the Labour Act, it directs who is responsible where that is concerned. So sometimes, a lot of times, people would say, well, look, the police passing up and down and the police observing.
Because we know the police is to protect and serve, is for law and order.
Not in every single case. We will, and so the Inspectorate
But
can go in with anybody he or she chooses to go.
Right, but shouldn't there be some sort of mandate for the police to report it to the Labour Inspectorate? If you are as a police officer, you're driving on the road, you know every time you reach this corner, there's this lady with this child begging for money. Every time you go by this corner, as in your police vehicle, in your private vehicle, it don't matter. As an officer, is it a part of your responsibility to say, well, all right, I know it how to go to the Labour Inspectorate?
So yes, as a police officer, we will.
Right.
But we'll also stop and warn and talk to the person and get some information and also try to, well, direct the person of where they can go if it is that the child is in danger and that kind of thing. Because we will still do what we are required to do. But in terms of charging the person,
right, obviously,
we don't have that authority to do it. But naturally, if the child is in danger, the child is in the middle of the road and that kind of thing, we will do what we have to do within the limits of the law.
Of course. What other tips you want to share with us when it comes to awareness, especially for child labor?
Now, you spoke about children who sometimes on the highway selling produce.
Right.
And sometimes you will see them during the July-August vacation period. And there are some organizations that actually have set up through schools that allow for children to do that, which is legitimate because it builds their capacity and as a stepping stone into the world environment.
Yeah,
there is the Junior Achievers, that is one of them where children are actually young, but they are still, sidelined into how they can develop a business. But that is structured through school.
And it's done from
Form
4, so it's close to 16-ish.
And they can, because it is through school.
Right.
It's not really for gain per se, it is really for educational purposes. Because most children are business students, and I can verify because I have family who did it.
Yeah, I do, Jay, and I make money doing Jay.
Yes, but you were a business student.
Yes.
And so it is not for science students, it is specific to show business students how the world of business. So it is for educational purposes.
I just say
I know you can.
Good.
And I know.
Good, they go make money.
But that's not the intent, eh? So there are opportunities still where children do have the opportunity to expand and learn, at a young age, and then they would have the idea, okay, shall I go this way or shall I go that way? However, it must be curbed by the law and children must not be taken advantage of. And I think that's the key message here, that children must not be taken advantage of. If it is that the child has lessons to go to, allow the child to take the lessons.
Yeah.
Do not cause the child to wake up early in the morning because the child has this amount of work to do. By the time the child reaches in school, the child is sleepy. The child unable to function because the child is being caused to do work. so that the family can gain and unable to get a solid education.
So at what age do you consider it to be contributing to the family rather than work? Because you mentioned family businesses being okay. So at what age is it okay for you to start contributing to the family business? If your family business is on a farm and we have family business to do the same thing as having a shop, it's the same thing as any other family business, yeah?
Right, so there's a difference between chores and labor.
Right.
Right, and of course, chores wouldn't be overwhelming, that it impacts negatively, in fact, the child's ability to learn his or her education. Right, so that's different if the family has a farm or gardening or agriculture, whatever. When my family didn't have it and I had to do it, that personal long time, they tote water from one corner to the next because it has no water, you have to shower, food has to cook. We're not talking about chores, we're talking about labor where it is excessive. So those things that you talk about, causing a child to go and feed the animals, that actually helps develop a child well and prepares him or her well for the future.
Right.
But we're talking about where it's excessive. Where the child it is overwhelming. By the time the child reaches the school, the child is asleep, or the child has to leave school early now to come to help because of. So instead of the parent, for example, hiring someone else, they would utilize the child who's very young.
Anything that would prevent the child from being able to gain their education.
Correct.
Or to successfully participate in school.
Correct.
That's where we can agree that it should stop there.
Yeah, it should stop there. Over 16. Yes.
You can do it. You can get into excess and overdo.
Over 16, you can actually be legitimately, you can be employed. And some children finish school at 16.
Right. Okay.
Based on the time that they enter school. So this morning, we really want to encourage members of the public. Now, Trinidad and Tobago, fortunately, we do not have a high record of child labor as other countries worldwide, so we are happy about that. That is not to say that if it is that you observe certain things, like you spoke of, that we wouldn't bring it to the attention of the Ministry of Labor, so that we diminish it altogether and end child labor totally in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, Inspector, what else is there to say after you say something like that? Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Always our pleasure.
And for sharing this information. I think it's also important for us to share the information that if you are having any sort of concerns, if you have anything like that, you can reach out to the Ministry of Labor as well.
Yes.
And you can also reach out to the Children's Authority. They have a hotline, which is 996 or 800-2014. And you can report any cases, and they will know exactly who to take it to, be it the TTPS, be it the Ministry of Labor Inspectorate, or whoever it needs to go to be able to deal with the situation or investigate the situation accordingly. Let me say thanks again to you, Inspector Michelle Lewis, joining us every Monday for the TTPS on Now. On this coming Wednesday, the 12th of June, we celebrate World Day Against Child Labor. Do your part. That's all we can ask. Take a quick break and come back with more. Stay tuned.
Let's say thanks to the police all around, especially in